Happy Monday. Welcome to another iteration of HR Masters Wine and Wisdom. I'm Michele Synegal, one of two guests today presenting to you ways in which to become even more effective HR and DEI practitioners. Today, I will be interviewing Jody Friend of JLM HR Consulting. Welcome, Jody.
Hi, Michelle. Thank you so much for having me today. I'm delighted to talk about this subject that I know that is near and dear to both you and I as HR practitioners and DEI practitioners.
Absolutely. So, Jody, let's get it started. Let's just delve right into it. So, our topic today is self-care for HR practitioners and DEI practitioners as well, diversity, equity, and inclusion. And so the question is, Jody, why do you feel that self-care is so important?
Well, yeah, so I'm sharing some slides today, but I think it's really important that we take care of ourselves in the work that we do every day. Uh, I think those of us who are passionate about this work, we take on everyone else's challenges, problems, concerns, family matters, and we also have those same things ourselves. But oftentimes we're so busy taking care of other people in the work that we do. Sometimes we forget about taking care of ourselves. And I know for me personally, I have felt the effects of that. And with my wonderful support group, which is my family, as well as other HR professionals like Michelle, I have learned to sometimes take a break, take a break from all that is happening around us. And of course, we're going to continue to talk about COVID-19. That has had such an effect on everyone, I think, from a mental and as well as physical standpoint. And if we're not taking care of ourselves, we can't take care of others, and we can't be as effective in our work if we're not taking care of ourselves.
Absolutely. And that reminds me of the saying that the flight attendants usually announce when you are on the plane and they are going through their safety protocols. And they'll always say, put your oxygen mask on first.
Yes.
And what that means is take care of yourself first, because if you don't, you have nothing to give to anyone else. And so that's why we need to go to the well as HR and DEI professionals, and yes, bring out what we can in service to other people, but we also need to drink from the well ourselves. And I notice you want to focus on four categories: emotional well being, psychological well being, physical, and spiritual. And why do you take that approach, Jody?
Well, I take that approach because it is what I feel is total self care. So we have to have emotional well being. And what I want to, I'm one of those, and I'm just going to speak from personal experience, but I'm one of those folks that tends to keep it all in,
Mm.
right? And I know over the years and as I've gotten older, the effects of keeping it all in. And so I've made a point of, surrounding myself with other professionals in my space that I can talk to and that I can be me with and let it all out if I need to. Have a good cry if I need to. That's cleansing. And
Yes.
that emotional component also leads into the psychological well-being, because if we're holding it all in, it affects our psyche as well. And so I know, again, for me personally, I have, there have been times when I've sort of, blown up because I haven't released all of that emotion. And remember, it's not just, Michelle, it's not just the emotion that we have in dealing with our own personal uh, uh, issues and challenges with family members. But again, it's all of the emotional things that we take on from other people. You know,
Yeah,
we're absorbing
absolutely.
all of that.
In our work, we listen to people, and especially for me in the DEI space, and I listen to these stories of microaggressions. I listen to these stories about being ostracized and marginalized. And what I have had to train myself to do is to be an observer, but to not to absorb what people are telling me. Because if I absorb and take on the feeling nature of what they are experiencing, I'm not in the best position to help them. I don't have a clear head. I can't give them good guidance and lead them to problem solving. So it really requires that all of us as HR and DEI practitioners learn how to do that. Yes, display empathy, but don't sympathize, because when you sympathize, then you cease to be as effective as you might otherwise be.
Absolutely, Michelle. And, thank you for that. And then, of course, the physical well-being. It's also another form of release. It can be something just as simple as taking a 15-minute walk on a daily basis. But as long as you're doing something to take care of the body, the physical part of us, that is also going to help you take care of yourself better. Eating healthier, drinking more water. I know one of the things that I've incorporated in my daily routine is really just drinking more water. And it's just, I mean, something as simple as that. I have this wonderful cup that I use now. It's 30 ounces, and I make sure I get through at least two of those in a day. I keep it right at my desk, so there's really no excuse. And something as simple as that can just again replenish your body. I mean, our bodies are made up of water,
Yes.
so a good portion of our bodies. So just replenishing that, and then also just trying to maintain healthy eating habits as well. And so that's something that, me personally, and as I get older, am focusing on a lot more.
Yeah, and I'll speak to the spiritual well-being. That's important. We take a holistic approach to self-care, and that's why Jody included these four areas in this presentation. So the spiritual well-being, we need to be grounded, we need to be centered, we need to be quiet and still, because when we don't go to that place of perfect peace, that place that's inviolate, then again, we're not bringing our best selves to any situation. So whatever your practice is, and your practice might just be to be quiet, to be still, you need to do that. Harvard Business School has an executive MBA program, as everybody knows, it's world renowned, and they have included a spiritual practice. They term it mindfulness. And so they've been conducting a study over the last several years whereby they have a controlled group, and these are individuals, executives who commit to mindfulness practice 15 to 30 minutes every single day. And then they have an experiential group, and these are individuals, oh, if I think about it, I'll do it. And sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. And so what the study has been assessing is the quality and the impact of the decisions that these executives make. And what the studies have borne out is that those individuals who engage in the mindfulness practice every day, they're more systemic in their thinking, they're more strategic in their thinking, they're more long-term in their thinking. And so they come up with more impactful solutions that are sustainable for the long term. Now, that's not to say that the experiential group didn't have one or two or three of those type experiences, but if you look at the total population of both groups, the individuals in the mindfulness practice group consistently gained insight that gave their organizations competitive advantage, or if they were nonprofit organizations, they made greater impact on their mission. So spiritual well-being is absolutely essential and critical to one's self-care as well.
Absolutely. So, Michelle, I know that some people that are watching may not have a clear understanding of what mindfulness is. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. So mindfulness is just a practice where you stop and you're quiet and you notice what you're noticing. You notice what it is that you're thinking. And so there are different ways to approach it. One way that I have learned to approach it is that I don't try to force my thoughts. I just let whatever thoughts bubble up, let them come up. And, one will get my attention and I follow it to its conclusion and it just dissipates and then we get another thought. And so what I also do is in those moments where I'm thinking about my thinking, I'm observing what I'm thinking. And what that means is, where did that thought come from? Why am I thinking that? What's going on in the environment? What's going on with me? Why am I having a reaction? And so you're having this internal self inquiry in those mindfulness moments. And I actually capture ideas and thoughts, things for me to explore further when I'm not in that practice, because I want to bring my full attention to that practice, which means I have to be there. I have to be fully present. I can't be on to the next thing, which might be, how do I resolve this? What are some strategies? No, I just need to be in that eternal now moment. And so, what we're also doing, we're quieting our minds. What the research has also borne out is that because of all of the stimulation that we are exposed to, just say, for instance, you're watching television and you're watching the news. Well, then there's a ticker tape on the bottom. There's a, breaking news flashing in the middle. There's just so much going on. We are overly stimulated. Our nervous systems are. And so the mindfulness practice helps to rejuvenate the nervous system, bring us back to equilibrium and homeostasis. And so that's mindfulness. It's just being quiet, just being still, and noticing what you're noticing.
Right. All right. Thank you for that, Michelle.
Mhm.
All right. So we'll talk a little bit more about, the emotional well-being. I think one of the things that is helpful for me is setting clear boundaries on my time and on
Yeah.
my energy. Also, and once again, surrounding, yourself with positive people. I mean, those birds of a feather flock together, that saying.
Yes.
It is very, very true. And so, if you're around positive people, it's very hard for you to not be positive, because, when you're in the same room, having similar kinds of conversations, your minds are in the same space. That helps to, elevate the positivity around you. So, Michelle, can you speak on that just a little bit more?
Oh, certainly. Let me just speak on the broader topic of emotional well-being. Everyone is familiar with emotional intelligence. If you don't know exactly what that means, emotional intelligence is four competencies. And the first of which is self-awareness. And so that mindfulness practice that I just mentioned, that increases your self-awareness because you are observing what you're observing and you're thinking about why you're thinking what it is that you're thinking, and you're being quiet and you're engaged in self-inquiry. So that's self-awareness. The second competency is self-regulation or self-management. There is a body-mind connection that exists and it is real. And so being able to regulate one's emotions is so important. Say, for instance, you're overly stimulated and you are about to explode because somebody has tap danced on your last nerve. If you have the ability to regulate your emotions, you engage the technique or the practice that will get you back to homeostasis, get you back to equilibrium. And so for me, I have a mantra and I just recite that mantra in my mind and it brings me back to equilibrium. And so I have the ability to regulate my emotions. I can bring my blood pressure down significantly, and many people can do that. If say for instance, if you practice meditation, I've practiced transcendental meditation for over 30 years, and so that's the mantra that I recite. And so once my brain processes that mantra, then I start to have physiological responses to that. And those responses are quiet. It brings me back to tranquility and serenity. The third competency within emotional intelligence is other awareness, being aware when others might be emotionally triggered. And if you can, the next competency is relationship management. Not only are you managing the relationship, you might be mentoring that person in terms of helping them to be restored to homeostasis or equilibrium. Why don't you take some deep breaths? Why don't you slow the process down? Let's take a break now. Why don't you take a roll? That's what we refer to as emotional mentoring. So there's this whole body of study now regarding emotional well-being. And what many social scientists have said is that as you move up in the organization and you interact with more, you're accountable for more, you're responsible for more in the way of other people, that your EQ, your emotional quotient, becomes more important than your IQ. It's your technical competence that got you there, but it's your EQ, your ability to stand in the fire, to stand in the storm, and be there, be that rock for your people, is so necessary. So that's, in a nutshell, that's emotional intelligence.
So much for that. All right, so we'll go to our next, point here. Our next slide, the psychological well-being. One couple of points here that I wanted to mention are, make sure you're taking time out for just personal reflection. That can be done again through mindfulness. It can be done through perhaps journaling, or just quiet time. Quiet time. I know, I enjoy reading passages from the Bible before I go to bed at night. That is one of the ways that I center myself for the evening before I go to sleep. And in the morning, there is a pastor that I enjoy listening to. So while I'm preparing myself for the day, I have the pastor on in the background as I'm preparing, for the day. And that really helps to center me. And that's my personal time, my personal reflection time. And sometimes it'll bring me to, thinking about ways that I'm going to achieve the task for that day.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes I may be uptight or anxious about what I have on my schedule, but then, having that centering and sort of that grounding first thing in the morning helps to relieve some of that anxiety about the things that I have to accomplish. And also just remembering, you can only do so much in a day.
Yeah.
And being okay with that, right? And so, and then counseling, while I'm not currently in any sort of, therapy situation, I have been in the past, and it
Mm-hmm.
has been quite helpful. And there's nothing wrong with it. So that's something,
Absolutely.
yeah, Michelle, I want to just, put that out there too, that there's absolutely nothing wrong with seeking, a professional counseling or professional therapy. I think we all, need it at different points in our lives. So nothing wrong with that at all.
I agree with that. And now, with the advent of technology, it's so easy. There are a number of programs now that you can subscribe to online for therapy on a regular basis. You get matched up with a therapist. And so you set up your appointments, and they're virtual appointments. So there is no reason why people should struggle internally when there are professionals who are available to help you. And especially as HR professionals, you know, sometimes we are recommending the employee assistance program for folks because they may have something going on significant in their lives. Well, sometimes we need to give ourselves that same counsel. There may just be an overload of, folks who are, say, losing jobs, and that's happening. And you're hearing those stories. You don't want to absorb that because, again, you want to be able to give people some guidance on how to address their issue. Maybe you want to mitigate their pain, their suffering. So you've got to be in a healthy mental state, psychological state yourself. So as I said, let's walk our talk. And if we're feeling overwhelmed, then we should seek out counseling. And I wanted to just add something else with regard to the journaling. There is a whole body of self-care mediums that are available to us, and journaling is one. It's referred to as narrative therapy. And what that is you journal every day, and then you go back and you look at what it is that you're writing, and then you actually can rewrite your story. And in rewriting your story so that you become the heroine or the hero, it does much for the psyche. And all it takes is a changing of one's thought about a situation, changing one's perception of the situation. And then you guess what? You change the corresponding feeling, the emotion. All of that is done with the power of the pen and the power of one's mind. So thanks for letting me wax on that, because these are topics that are near and dear to my heart.
Absolutely, Michele. Thank you. And we may have to do a session just on that, and so we'll talk about that later. But
Okay.
all right. So again, physical well-being. We already touched a little bit on this component earlier. Drinking lots of water. Maintaining a healthy diet, getting some exercise daily, and then sometimes almost more important than anything else is getting adequate rest. Right? Adequate sleep, adequate rest, and just enjoying those moments. And it's okay to not do something, on a week, on a Saturday, or even on a
Just
Sunday.
be. Is that what you're saying? Just be?
That's right.
Yeah, because we're so busy doing. But you know what? We need to be about being, just being sometimes. And that's being quiet and that's being still. And I wanted to just add another point to those moments of rest. As a nation in the United States, we are sleep deprived, according to the social scientists. As a culture, we are sleep deprived. And our culture, if you compare it to other cultures like European cultures, for instance, we don't have the balance, the same kind of balance, work-life balance that other cultures have. Now organizations are recognizing the importance of that, and they're trying to create more work-life balance in the lives of their workforces. But we're way behind in terms of other cultures. So for instance, people laugh about siesta. Well, there's value in leaving work for 3 hours, spending time with family. That's something that brings you joy. That's something that raises your emotional state. You have a meal with your family, then you go back to work for another 2 hours. I'm certain that you're a lot more productive after you've had that siesta than if you had worked through those 7, 8, 9, 10 hours, whatever it is. So again, recognize that we need that rest because that restores and replenishes everything that keeps the body and the mind functioning at its highest.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right. And then let's see here. What else have we got on um, our subject here? Of course, it's a spiritual well-being. Again, we touched on that a little bit already, but this, of course, may include prayer or meditation, practicing gratitude. That's something that's near and dear to me. I look around and I'm grateful, for all of the things that I have, grateful for my family, grateful for just being able to do what I'm doing today with you, Michele.
Mm.
having the opportunity just to share knowledge and to, make myself available. What we're talking about today may be helpful to someone, and
Absolutely.
for the opportunity to be able to do that. And, spending time in nature, that's something that I haven't done a lot of, you know, probably in several years, but it's certainly, I think it's, again, as I'm self-reflecting and, trying to make some changes, in my personal life and habits and things like that, spending time in nature, that is something that, again, can ground us
Mhm.
spiritually,
Mhm.
emotionally, without getting some physical activity. So, it's certainly a way to, again, keep our minds and our spiritual well-being, in a healthy place.
Absolutely. And so, another thing about practicing gratitude, when you focus on what you have, then you're not giving attention to what you don't have. And focusing on what you have keeps you in a positive state because then you recognize that every need is supplied. So, don't sweat the small stuff. So, that practice of gratitude raises our emotional vibration as well. And so, that's another reason why we want to stay in that place of gratitude, being being grateful, knowing that everything that I need, I have in this moment. Everything that I need, I have. And that does just tremendous um, work in terms of staying positive and approaching life and approaching one's work from a I can attitude, being again, the heroine and living above the line as opposed to living below the line. Oh, life happened to me. No, I'm making things happen. I am creating the life that I want every moment, but with every decision that I make to either eat well or not, to exercise or not, to have some emotional release or not. We get to choose. We get to make those decisions in every single moment.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right. So we have just a couple of more slides we want to, go over with you. And, as HR professionals, we need to give ourselves some grace. I mean, we're human too.
Yes.
We're often, quite frankly, and I'm just going to speak very candidly here because I think it's so important and also as Black human resource professionals. Oftentimes, we have to elevate ourselves to a level that's not necessarily expected of our, other colleagues that are not of color in this work that we do, and that just adds another level of stress. I mean,
It does.
you know, bring 100%. Well, we have to bring 200%, and
Correct.
and we have to give ourselves some grace. We're human, and again, with all the other things that we talked about today, taking those things in combination with giving ourselves some grace, I think that that's going to help us overall. Again, the resting and recharging is so important. And then, of course, let's, as HR practitioners and diversity, equity, and inclusion practitioners, we have to walk the walk, right? We have to model self care in the workplace. Let our staff and employees know that it's okay to take care of themselves. It's okay to take a mental health day. And I'm working with some clients now who have also recognized through this pandemic. I think this pandemic has opened up the eyes of quite a few employers as to what it means, self care, what that means, and especially for productivity in the workplace. So, for instance, one of the clients that I'm working with, a lot of the work that they do, sometimes their employees have to work in the evenings. They're not working traditional hours and or longer hours, and they're going to be implementing a policy called the bonus days, and it is not associated with PTO or sick leave. It is just that bonus days. And so, but the onus of implementing that policy is going to be on the managers to be
Mm,
able to recognize and give a bonus day, which really is to rest and recharge for the employees, but to recognize when that needs to happen and say to, John Doe employee, here's a bonus day. I know you've been working really hard and these long hours. And so, that for me now, in working with that employer and implementing that, I'm going to put that into my toolkit because I'll be able to share that with some other clients. I think it's a great idea.
yes. And Jody, just to reiterate and build upon the comment that you made with regard to being people of color, we really have to invest more in our self-care because just navigating this world, being subject to, as I mentioned, I call them microaggressions, but oftentimes they are macroaggressions. And that's mundane stress that we experience every single day that other groups don't have to concern themselves with. And that's undue pressure. And so we owe it to ourselves to stay grounded, to stay centered so that we can keep things in perspective. And one of the ways that we do that, I'm so glad to see this chart, is so inclusive of the various aspects of how one takes care of oneself, priorities, keeping your eye on the prize, what is important to you. At the end of the day, what you want to think about is when you're in that reflection mode, is what I'm doing, what I'm thinking, what I'm being about moving me closer to what's most important to me? So we have to set goals for ourselves. We have to prioritize those goals. We have to prioritize ourselves and elevate ourselves to priority status from time to time so that we keep our motivational level up, because in keeping our motivational level up, there's a direct correlation between that and how we show up in the world, how we engage the world, how we approach our work, our performance, our deliverables, our results. So all of this adds to that. So if you want to be effective in what it is that you do, you must engage in self-care.
Absolutely. Thank you. All right. So I think that is going to bring us to our almost to our last slide here. We've again just got some takeaway tips for our audience today. Build 10 to 15 minute breaks into your workday. Get up from the desk. I have started actually coming back to my office. Right now I'm the only one coming into the office space, but I'm finding that I have I get up from the desk and I kind of force myself to get away from the desk, go take a walk, go check the mail, even that's just a few feet from my office, but just something to go refill the water, my water, but just getting a different environment to help sort of spur these tips and these healthy habits that we're encouraging you all to adopt. Practicing mindfulness. There have been times when I've just literally, let the computer screen go dark
Mm-hmm.
a few minutes to regroup, ground myself, but because the emails, Michele, I can't even begin to tell you hundreds of, and then the hundreds of emails that just flood in on a daily basis. Uh,
Yes.
and then you begin to feel overwhelmed because you want to, respond to each and every one. That's just not practical, right? And so I've learned that it doesn't have to be today. It can be tomorrow.
Yes.
So yes, I know there have been times when if I'm away from say my computer access for too long, I begin to feel myself getting anxious. And there have been times when I've gone to, say, for instance, a client email and have checked, and there's nothing there. And I'm thinking to myself, why are you so anxious anyway? Right? about, wondering if there's an email there. You'll get to it when you get to it. So I'm learning. I'm learning, how to, again, uh,
Strike that balance, that work-life
yeah,
balance.
absolutely, absolutely.
And I
Uh,
have one other thing that I thought of, Jody, to mention, and that is Zoom fatigue is real.
oh, yes.
And so if you spend lots of time in meetings in this virtual space like this, self-care takes on even greater importance. Studies are bearing out that we are emotionally and we are psychologically drained oftentimes because you have to be attentive when you're in this virtual space. You're looking at the screen all the time. Another part of self-care, I just want to add this, is I don't wear glasses, but I wear glasses every time I'm on a virtual meeting. These are just magnifying glasses because what the doctor told me is that you're looking at that screen, you are straining oftentimes, to stay focused for long periods of time. So wear magnifying glasses when you are in these virtual meetings and there are presentations with data on the slide. So I wear them. And it really helps. I'm not straining, so I never experience headaches as a consequence. So making sure that if you're on for long periods, I do online trainings all day long, but we take a 10-minute break at the top of every hour. And I encourage people, get up, walk around. Sometimes I'll lead chair yoga just to get people to move around. Those who tend to be more stationary, I'll just stay there and I will do chair yoga and they'll follow along with me. So Zoom fatigue is real, mitigate it. And these are all of the takeaways. And I'm going to let Jody summarize on those takeaways and take us out of this conversation. Jody, back to you.
Yep, absolutely. And, good point about the glasses. Because the ones I have on right now are not prescription either, but they're blue light glasses because of all of the glare from
Yes.
computer screens. And I have noticed that my eyes aren't as tired, aren't as red, after I've worn these for a good part of the day as well.
Yes.
So keep that in mind again. So build in those 10 to 15-minute breaks into your workday. As Michele said, get up from your chair or do some chair yoga. It's a great idea. Again, eat lunch. Don't forget to eat. Again, terrible habit of mine. We get so absorbed into what we're doing. We want to get it done, especially for those of us that have been working from home and those of us that continue to work from home. Because you're home, it's easier in my experience to just continue to work.
Been there, done that.
That's not healthy at all, which again is one of the reasons why I've come back to the office, because at some point I've got to go home. So, that's again a very conscious thing that I've decided to do. And so, practice that mindfulness, go for a short walk, maybe try some yoga, and build a support group. I think one of the things that I am so grateful for is HR Masters Wine and Wisdom. I have really made some wonderful connections. Michele and I have known each other for a long time, and she knows she can call me at any time, and I can do the same. And so, again, we're like-minded, and we know we can lean on one another during difficult times. And so, build that support group. Find some folks that you can really lean on, and that's helpful. Very, very helpful.
So thank you again, Jody. I believe you have some resources you want to share with our audience as well. So yes, there's some links here, you all, that goes into a lot more detail than what we were able to cover in this short presentation. But I just want to remind you that you come first. So put on the oxygen mask before you assist others in putting on theirs, because if you don't, you have nothing to give. You have nothing to help other people to mitigate their challenges and their problems. So self-care is primary. Thank you all so much for tuning in to another iteration of HR Masters Wine and Wisdom. We'll see you next time. Thank you, Jody.
All right.